Hey folks, L.A. Marzulli here. Thanks so much for attending the conference here in Florida. I would have loved to have been there. Here's what happened. When I signed up and committed to the conference, we were supposed to get all the components for the house basically in March. Because of COVID, there was no metal. So everything has been delayed. It is now July. We're recording this here in the studio in an undisclosed location on the windswept plains of Oklahoma. And so I just can't do it. I'll be flying out there very shortly, and we're in the process of rebuilding. So had we got the components in March, would have happened, but it's not happening now. Anyway, all that to say, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for checking this out. I will be talking about our new film, UFO Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception and the Luciferian Endgame. It is totally free. You can just go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, download it for free, watch it, share it. It's on all sorts of platforms. Why did I release it for free? This information is critical, in my opinion. We need to get the word out. So once again, you can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, download it. All I would ask is that you pass it forward. We are working on the second part, which will have some of our information that we actually filmed in the Watchers. We're going to show that removal of the so-called implant. We're going to get into all that because that's so far down the rabbit hole, and that was done, years ago. Anyway, moving right along, this is what it looks like in the new studio. Here's one of the sets that we use, and I'm just showing that to give you an idea of what to expect in the first film, going back here, UFO Disclosure. Again, we are working on part 2. If you want to contribute to that, it will be free. But if you want to help us, pass it forward, you can donate, and we will certainly thank you for that. So moving right along, our mission statement is to expose the deception of the prince of the power of the air and to herald the return of the King, Jesus. So this is not for the faint of heart. And I want to just say something before I get into this. Folks, I have been talking about this, talking about the UFO phenomena, literally for decades. I have warned about it a priori, well in advance of any type of, government revealing that we're starting to see now. And we'll get into some of that in this presentation. I've been warning about this. This is the coming great deception. The so-called revealing of the extraterrestrial is the coming great deception, in my opinion. And I've written numerous books on it and produced films on it. And I again, go back to streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net. You can download that for free. But our mission statement is twofold. We expose the deception of the prince of the power of the air, i.e. the dragon. And we herald the return of the King Jesus, because I truly believe we are in a window of time where our King, our Lord, our Messiah, our Redeemer is going to come back. And we will be with him when he does come back. Let's move on. Something or someone is coming. Wait, it's already here. Folks, it's being revealed on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, all media, CNN, The Sun, it's at Washington Post, it's everywhere, where we get op-eds on extraterrestrials and UFOs and all this stuff. Well, some of us, like yours truly, have been traveling in this literally for decades. Jesus warns us, and it's a very dire warning. This is almost 2,000 years ago, and he says this: men's hearts fainting them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. That is one of the most dire warnings in all of Scripture, folks. What are we to make of that? And I've talked about this before. So it's nothing new, but when we read that, when was the last time you heard a sermon on that? You haven't. Most likely you haven't. But you're going to hear it here. Why? Because this is a warning, which I take very seriously. And if we don't heed this warning, we do so at our own peril. People will be terrified at what they see coming upon the earth. For the powers in heaven shall be shaken, New Living Translation. Even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. Think about this. Jesus is warning us that even the elect would be deceived. So I promise you, by going to this conference here with Pastor Paul and Steve and others that are here, you will not be deceived. You will know the truth. And the truth will keep all of us from being deceived. Because, look, the enemy is coming with all signs and lying wonders. There's no doubt about that. Moving right along. Here's a shot of the universe. If we are intellectually honest, nobody knows what this is or where we are in it. You've heard me talk about this before. If the United States is analogous to the universe, is planet Earth in Detroit, Los Angeles, Houston, Tampa, Florida, we have no idea. We have no idea where we are. And some people believe that there has to be life on other planets. That's called the plurality of worlds. I don't hold to that. Why? Because in Scripture it tells us that the God of the Bible is going to roll up the heavens and create a new heaven and a new earth. Is that allegory? Is that just pie in the sky? Here's why I believe it with all my heart. Because everything else, after traveling with the Lord for 41 years as a born-again, Spirit-filled Christian, I have learned, and studying the Bible, I have learned that everything that is written in those pages has come true. Everything. All the prophecies that we see from Genesis to Revelation, many of them have already come to pass. More of them still need to be fulfilled. This is where we are. It's absolutely the most incredible book on the planet. And if you think you've read it, or if you think you know about it, but you've never read it, you don't know anything about it. Sometimes during a week, I will sit on one verse, literally. Just sit on one verse and ruminate on it and think about it and repeat it to myself and memorize it and get it into my spirit man. Look, folks, when the Lord tells us that he's going to create a new heaven and a new earth, that's where I'll put my money if I was a betting man. You can bank on that. Guaranteed. That's what he's going to do. It's not allegory. Why? Because everything that he says in his word has come true. So here we are. This incredible span of planets, galaxies, and everything else. And nobody knows how it started. Oh, the Big Bang, they'll tell us. Oh, it just happened thousands, millions, of billions of years ago. Well, where did the Big Bang come from? Who set the Big Bang in motion? How does that work? Nobody knows. Nobody knows where the first self-replicating molecule originated from. Nobody knows where the DNA, molecular structure DNA, the spiral of life, which is the name of our company, Spiral of Life. No one knows where it came from. But the neo-Darwinists are looking out there, and I'll get to that in just a minute. We live here, and I just checked this out. This is what it looks like, and we're over here someplace. So, look, folks, when I look at the night sky, my mind is blown, and I'm sure yours is too. But I want to get into this because this is something that we need to understand. The existing global paradigm, and many of you who have seen me over the years and have read in our films and books, you know where I'm coming from with this. But the global paradigm, the existing paradigm, is the evolutionary paradigm, the one set forth in the 19th century by Charles Darwin. It's never been proven. It's a theory. Scientists like to cram it down our throat and tell us that evolution is a fact. No, it's not a fact. In fact, that we now know with the complexities of the DNA, the molecular structure of the deoxyribonucleic double helix of life, this thing just didn't fall out of the sky. It just didn't happen from some primordial slime for billions of years. So we are told that, and I'm reading a book called Sapiens, and in that book, the author says, well, you know, millions and millions and millions of years ago, a great ape gave birth to twins. One was a chimpanzee, the other was our great-grandmother. Well, how does he know that? People, they just make this stuff up. And if you believe that, then they can go to the next step. In other words, if we believe in the Big Bang, then we can just move right along. If you believe that our ancestors are chimpanzees, then when you look at this ridiculous chart here, we see this evolution to modern man. The problem is that goes against DNA. And so you get this whole thing, natural selection, you know, anointed this particular species, and that's why they became better. Neanderthals their brains were too big, so they died out, but Homo sapiens were okay because their brains were smaller. So natural selection shows them. Wait a minute, natural selection has to be mindless. It doesn't choose anything, all right? And what we're looking at here, in my opinion, is the lie. We are told in 2 Thessalonians that God sends them strong delusion. Why? Because they did not believe the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that Jesus spoke everything into existence. That's the truth. That is the truth. There's no doubt about that. But because they exchange the truth for the lie, God sends them strong delusion. That is prophetic. So what's the truth? That Jesus spoke, the spoken word, called everything into being. Without him, nothing that was made was not made. And he holds all things together. He is before all things, and he holds all things together. Think about that. That is in direct contradiction with what evolution tells us. However, the neo-Darwinists believe that the DNA, the double helix of life, the spiral of life, just couldn't have happened on its own. So they are looking out there. They are looking to the stars. They are looking for our progenitors, our creators out there. Many of them believe that life was seeded here. That concept, of course, is called panspermia. And many good-minded people, good-hearted people, believe that. Ancient Aliens, every Friday night, promulgates that theory, that we were visited in our ancient past by extraterrestrials, ancient astronaut theorists. That's what we are told. That's what they believe. But as Christians, as born-again Christians, we don't believe that. Yes, many of the sites that we visit and talk about, we see the vestiges of something else going on here. And that's why our series, On the Trail of the Nephilim, that's why we're on the trail. But we don't believe it's extraterrestrials. We believe that these sites, like Sacsayhuaman, like Puma Punku, like Gilgal Raphaim, are the results of fallen angels having relationships with human women, producing an offspring known as the Nephilim. And that's why our whole series On the Trail of the Nephilim and our books and DVDs and everything else points us. We expose the deception of the prince of the power of the air. We pull the covers off what the dragon has been up to for millennia. Heck, when you go and you look at On the Trail of the Nephilim series, episode 4, America's Stonehenge, the Bow Connection. Well, there was a stone that was discovered at America's Stonehenge in Salem, New Hampshire. It was buried in a collapsed chamber. Okay? And there was writing on this, but no one could decipher it. So enter Dr. Barry Fell, Professor Barry Fell, Harvard University. He comes in, he looks at the stone, and he goes, I think I can translate that. Weeks later, he comes back with the translation. Remember, they have no Nephilim dog in the hunt. They're not traveling in the same biblical narrative that I am. They know nothing about the Nephilim. Guess what it says? It says, to Baal of the Canaanites in dedication in Salem, New Hampshire. It's not a forgery, folks. It's not. It's the real deal. And it's in Iberian Punic. And it was found in a collapsed chamber. And no one would have discovered this thing. So if it's a big forgery, the guy who's forging this thing isn't making anything out of it. And the thing lays in the museum for 11 years. That's some forgery, isn't it? It's not a forgery. To Baal of the Canaanites in dedication. What is that doing in New Hampshire? I believe that America's Stonehenge, that 4,000-year-old site, bears the fingerprints of a supernatural. That is Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology. And the proof of the pudding is when you do a connection, and this is a whole other presentation, so I'm already off on a rabbit trail. But when you go from the center of their site, America's Stonehenge, Salem, and you go out to the summer solstice standing stone, and you draw a line on Google Earth, from the center of America's Stonehenge out to the standing stone. And we show this in the film. And continue that line, so you have 2 points. And if the stone here, the standing stone, where the summer solstice sunrise is, if that stone is moved a foot in either way, you won't wind up where I'm going to tell you wind up. But because the alignment is absolutely perfect, those 2 stones, when you extend the line on Google Earth, you're out over the Atlantic Ocean, you go through Ireland, you find yourself in southern England. When you scroll in or push in on Google Earth, you find out that line intersects the center trilithons at Stonehenge, England. You can't do that 4,000 years ago. You can do it in modernity, but you've got satellites up there. Who is the prince of the power of the air? To expose the deception of the prince of the power of the air and herald the return of the King Jesus. So there you go. We're exposing that deception. That is the greatest discovery of the 21st century, archaeological discovery, because it shows a connectivity between an ancient site in America and Stonehenge, England. And you can't do that unless you're triangulating in the air. It's not a coincidence. And we get into that in our films, A Trail of a Nephilim, that's episode 4. So moving right along, we know that the prevailing paradigm, the existing global paradigm, embraces the theory of evolution. So in that theory, there is no God, there is no moral absolutes, there is no right or wrong, there's no heaven or hell. It sounds like John Lennon's Imagine song, right? No absolute truth, and do whatever you want. Doesn't matter. I mean, you want to be good, right? Whatever that means, but anything goes. Sheryl Crow, these are the days when anything goes. And that's where we are. And that is the rise of lawlessness, but I digress. So moving right along, Disclosure 2017. We were told, and by Paul McGuire in our film, the Disclosure film, and I interviewed Paul in 2016, and McGuire said that he felt that we were going to see something in the coming months, but certainly in 2017, we would see something. Guess what? December 2017, on Tucker Carlson, this is what we saw. Res ipsa loquitur, I'll let the thing speak for itself.
UFOs have been the stuff of conspiracy theorists for decades, often mocked for talking about it, but maybe they shouldn't be mocked. Commander David Fravor spent 18 years as a naval aviator, pilot. In 2004, he had an unforgettable encounter with an aircraft he said was defying the laws of physics. Former Commander Fravor joins us tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on tonight. Tell us what you saw.
Well, we had launched on a routine training mission. When we joined up, we were told that the event was going to be canceled and that we had real-world tasking, and we were sent out to the west. Now, take in mind that this has taken place about 100 miles southwest of San Diego, between San Diego and Ensenada, Mexico, on a clear, perfect day, blue waters. We get out to the spot where they tell us it's at. We start looking around, and both airplanes see a disturbance in the water and a white 40-foot long tic-tac shaped object just hovering above the water, going forward, back, left, right. There's no rotor wash, there's no wings, nothing. So as we drive around in a clockwise flow, we get to about the 9 o'clock position, and I said, well, I'm going to go down and check it out, and the other jet is going to stay high. So as we go down, when we get to the 12 o'clock position, it starts to mirror us. So it's in a clockwise flow, and it's on the opposite side of the circle from us. And we continue this. It's in a climb. We're in a descent. We're getting a great look at it. This whole thing takes probably up to 5 minutes from the time we show up. I get over to the 8 o'clock position. It's at about the 2 o'clock position, and I decide I'm going to go and see what it is, and it's about 2,000 feet below me. And I cut across the circle, and as I get within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerates to the south in about 2 seconds and disappears.
What would you estimate the speed?
Well above supersonic. It like a bullet out of a gun, it took off.
So from what you know about aerodynamics, mechanics, physics, should this be possible, what you saw?
Not with the technology that we have today. Not at all.
Even now, even 13 years later, is there anything that you know of capable of this kind of behavior?
No, there's nothing I know of. I mean, when we saw the video with the IR, it has no exhaust. It's no discernible things of anything form of propulsion. And this thing came from a dead hover over the water, just kind of moving around, to a climb up to about 12,000 feet to rapidly accelerating away in a climb, and in less than 2 seconds it was gone. And you figure you're talking 50 miles of visibility, and you can easily see an object that size easily out to 10 miles, and it just disappeared in seconds.
What would be the effects on a human pilot of the G-forces involved in that altitude change?
Well, the altitude wouldn't be bad. It would be the acceleration of the object.
That's right.
Honestly, I wanted to fly it.
Yeah,
but, talking to some physicists, they don't think the human body could handle that kind of force with that acceleration.
It doesn't sound like the human body could. So bottom line, what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world. I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
One more time.
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
When presumably you expressed that belief to your superiors, what did they say?
Actually, we caught a lot of grief getting back to the boat, and it got passed off as an event that no one could explain. Now, keep in mind, they had been tracking these for 2 weeks prior to us seeing it, and this was the first time that manned airplanes had been airborne when the objects appeared.
This feels like a really big story to me. It's not exactly clear why Vladimir Putin's more interesting than this. I think this seems like a big deal. And Commander, I appreciate your taking the time to talk to us about it. You seem sober and believable, and I appreciate it.
So I'll stop right there for a second. Here's something to consider. And for those of you that have been tracking with this, bully for you, who is David Fravor? He's unknown, doesn't have a book, doesn't have a DVD. He's a total unknown entity. He winds up on Tucker Carlson. Who has the power to call Tucker Carlson's producers and go, hey, we'd like to have Commander David Fravor on. He's going to talk about UFOs. So here's the deal. We've got Tucker Carlson here, Commander David Fravor, total unknown. And then we've got what was, U.S. Department of Defense. We've got classified UFO footage, right? I mean, think about that. So when I saw this is 2017, I was just completely, utterly blown away. And I figured my phone would light up, that this was it. We're at the beginning of disclosure. This is the first rung of the ladder of disclosure. It's the first rung. This was the game changer. When Fravor came out on Tucker Carlson. Why Tucker Carlson, you may ask yourself? Well, let's examine Tucker's audience. Who watches Tucker Carlson's? Conservative Christians, for the most part. Not everybody's a born-again, spirit-filled Christian, but for the most part, their conservative Christian watches Tucker Carlson, all right? So they run this up the flagpole to see what anybody does, see what the church does, flatline. Total ambivalence when it comes to what's going on here. Think about that. Think about that. Since then, they've been rolling it out, and we're going to explore some of that. So here's the next one.
We've interviewed a number of experts on the show, people familiar with footage in the possession of the U.S. military, who have said there is tape out there of unidentified flying objects descending from the sky and then disappearing into the ocean. Well, today, that video emerged. The Pentagon has just confirmed that the footage is real. You're seeing it now on your screen. It was taken by the Combat Information Center on board the USS Omaha on July 15th, 2019, off the coast of San Diego. As far as we know, the UFO in question was never recovered. There was no material indicating a crash.
It's about to go disappear, watch.
More than that, we don't know. Tom Rogan is a Washington Examiner columnist, well-versed in the subject. He joins us tonight. Tom, what do you think we're looking at here?
Well, I think we may well be looking at a true unknown, which is to say intelligently controlled machinery that is not understood to be in the possession of the United States, China, or Russia, which are the three most advanced countries in terms of military aviation. And so, the video in and of itself is limiting what it can tell us, but I think it speaks to, as the Pentagon itself has admitted, this continuing trend of truly unexplained things coming into the public consciousness more than they have before.
If you listen to this with the sound up, you can hear the guys who are monitoring this video in real time gasp when it seems to disappear beneath the waves. So this kind of takes the weather balloon off the table, or some meteorological phenomenon off the table. I mean, clearly we're looking at something that is, as you just put it, being intelligently controlled, and it's going underneath the ocean and then disappearing. I mean, we're sure that this could not be a foreign nation.
Yeah, that is yes, and that is why you see people like Senator Rubio leaning into the subject. The military, Office of Naval Intelligence, which really leads the military effort researching this. There isn't anything that we have, top secret information, about what China or Russia have, or what we have at Area 51 that can do what these things do in terms of the variable performance. And I think specifically relevant to this video, in the coming months and years, an area which we will learn more about is the interaction of US Navy submarines, nuclear ballistic missile submarines and attack submarines, picking up sonar contact of things moving at hundreds of knots under the water. And so there is an undersea dimension to this that the Navy has sort of pushed off to the side as the pilots talk more about their experiences. So there's a lot more to come out, I think, is the best way to put it.
Hundreds of knots underwater. I mean, I think all of us can imagine objects moving at incredible speeds in the air, maybe even approaching, the speed of light, potentially. But hundreds of knots underwater, I don't think most people can even digest that. And that's been recorded?
That's what I've heard from sources, very good sources, and that the Navy has the data. And one of the big things, Tucker, that I think as we move towards this Director of National Intelligence report, and I do know that the various agencies are actually taking that more seriously than people might expect, as is DNI. One of the things we're going to find is that over a period of decades, a lot of the data, a lot of the measurement of these things has been put off as technical aberration or essentially a data malfunction, because they didn't want to really admit that something very serious and special is going on.
I mean, some of this behavior challenges our understanding of physics, so I think this is going to change a lot of perceptions. Tom, I appreciate it. I hope we'll see you again soon.
So the bottom line out here is this, that they roll it out on Tucker Carlson's show. They do it almost on a weekly basis now. A lot of this started it all started with Commander David Fravor in 2017. Here we are in 2021. So we've had 4 years of disclosure, and of course, recently they released the information on UFOs, the government 9-page report on UFOs. And I'll get into that just a little bit. It's unbelievable. So I want to show you something. Citizens Hearing on Disclosure, Dark Side of the Moon. This was released. This goes back, 10, 12 years ago, maybe even further back than that. And we had some information of that when we were doing the Watchers series. And I'll just show you the clip. I think you'll find it very, very interesting, talking about what this man saw. He's a whistleblower. And remember, when people would come out like this, no one believed them at all. But now with Tucker Carlson, it's come out of the tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists into the mainstream. Let's listen.
My name is Carl Wolf, and I was a precision electronics photographic repairman with a top secret crypto clearance in the United States Air Force. I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. In 1965, in mid-1965, I was loaned to the Lunar Orbiter Project at NASA on Langley Field. Dr. Colley was in charge of that project. They had problems with a piece of electronic equipment that was bottlenecking their production of photographs. I went to the facility, and when I walked into the facility, there were scientists from all over the world. I was stunned, actually, to see people at a NASA project from all over the world. It didn't make any sense to me initially. I was taken into the laboratory where the equipment was malfunctioning. I couldn't repair it in the dark. I asked to have it removed. Airman second class was in the dark room at that time. I was also an Airman second class. I was interested in how the whole process functioned, how the data got from the lunar orbiter to the laboratory. I asked the young man if he described the process to me. He did. About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, in a very distressed way, by the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon. And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in these photographs were structures, mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers. And at that point, I was very concerned because I knew we were working in compartmentalized security. He had breached security, and I was actually frightened at that moment. And I did not question him any further. And a few moments later, someone did come into the room. I worked there for 3 more days, and I remember going home and naively thinking, I can't wait to hear about this on the evening news. And here it is, more than 30 years later, and I hope we hear about it tonight. And I will testify under oath before Congress.
So I believe that this man is telling the truth. You can look at his body language. There's nothing at all that leads me to believe that this man is conjuring up a story. Look, the dark side of the moon bases, it's not the first time we've heard this. And the reason why I'm bringing this up and showing this, our government knows exactly who it is they're dealing with. Trust me, they already know. And some people, whistleblowers, have come up to me. We have them on film. In fact, in our disclosure film, we have one whistleblower. He's not on camera, won't come on the camera, but he talks about he gives us information about this underground base where American military people are working with these entities, the Greys, as it were. So I realize for some of you it's a huge stretch, but folks, I've been doing this for like over 30 years. I started getting into the whole UFO thing when I was a teenager. I saw my first one when I was 12 years old. I've seen 2. I have no desire to see any more. All right, I know what they are. I know who pilots them. But you gotta look. I've been doing this and studying it and creating books and films on it. And you have to understand that when we talk about bases on the dark side of the moon, for some of you, there's nothing in your grid. You're not ready for that. You don't know how to process that information. I understand. I get it. Some of you just kind of go, I can't hear this anymore. You got to hear it. You got to deal with it because it's coming out. It's no longer one guy at a citizens hearing of, citizens disclosure hearing. Now it's Tucker Carlson, and it's a whole stream of people on Tucker Carlson telling us that UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, notice they don't use UFOs anymore because you can't, that has too much stigma with it. But UAP is somehow okay, unidentified aerial phenomena, rather than unidentified flying object. So the bottom line is the phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. This has to be the best UFO footage I have ever seen. It's from Kumburgaz UFO. It was in Turkey. It appeared in 2007, 2008, and 2009. I'll show it to you in a second. And the reason for this is the work of my good friend and the director and co-producer of the Watcher series, Richard Shaw, who passed away 2 years ago, just a few weeks ago. We miss Rick. And some of you who met him and know him miss him too. So in the theory of relativity, time dilation is an actual difference of elapsed time between 2 events as measured by observers either moving relative to each other or differently situated from gravitational masses. So what this means is, biblically, as he led him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. So let's just stop here for a second. LA, what does time dilation have to do with our Bible? Everything. So Jesus is fasting in the wilderness for 40 days, and the dragon, Satan, comes up, and he leads him up to a high place and shows him in a moment of time all the kingdoms of the world. That is time dilation. That is literal. It's not allegorical. It's literal. The question is, how did the dragon take him from the desert and lead him up to this place where there was a rent in the space-time continuum and show him in a moment of time, a twinkling of an eye, all the kingdoms, which, by the way, they are his to give. That's what he promises. Jesus declines the offer. Thank God he did. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and leads them up to a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. And his raiment became shining, exceedingly white as snow, so as no fuller on earth can white them. And there appeared unto them Elijah and Moses, and they were talking with him. Think about this. How does that work? How does Jesus become transfigured? Once again, going back to this, we are looking at space-time completely being manipulated. It's absolutely mind-boggling for us humans to even get around that. But we read about this in our Bibles, and it's okay because it's in our Bibles. But the moment we start talking about it here with the Kumburgaz UFO, it's like, we can't go there. It's not in our grid system. Well, it needs to be in our grid system, and that's why we're going to get into this. So here's what I think is some of the best footage of a UFO ever taken. 2009, Dr. Roger Lear had a cameraman there. There's the ship. You can see the heat signature. You can see the entities here, and then the heat signature below the craft. It's a gull-wing type deal, saucer type, and you can see the entities in the craft. There are the entities. I mean, it's just, the footage is amazing here. And we're trying to get this on to Tucker to show him the reality of the phenomenon. Whether or not that happens, who knows? So I want to get into this and show you that when Richard took the film and slowed it down, okay, actual speed here, and then he slows it way down, and you can see this other entity moving in and out of the frame. So you've got the two grays that are dead center, and now let's watch 25%, and you see this other entity moving in and out. Time dilation? Well, we think it is. And that's why when we go here, there's the entity. It's kind of a mantis type, which people who have been abducted report. That's a close-up of it. So, what do you do with this, folks? There's the craft. Plain, you can see it plain as day. Here are the entities in the craft. And what do they look like? This is an artist's conception by the late Doug Chaffee. We use this for our book, which is out of print. I'm actually thinking about reprinting it again, The Alien Interviews. There it is. There's the actual photograph, zoomed in, and that's what they look like in the flesh, in my opinion. There's the craft. There are the entities in the craft, and that's what we think that they look like. Pentagon UFO unit in the Spotlight report mentions off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. As I say this every day on my Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural report, well, if they're not made on this Earth, where are they made? And more importantly, who the heck is making them? Navy pilots recall unsettling 2004 UAP sighting. Once again, notice it's Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, female pilot. They both came on 60 Minutes and talked about this. I'll never forget, in that interview, the interviewer is, and Luis Elizondo was also on that 60 Minutes report on UFOs, and the interviewer asked Luis Elizondo, who was also many times on Tucker Carlson, as you'll see, and asked Elizondo, in your opinion, Mr. Elizondo, what do you think these UAPs are? Notice they avoid UFO. And Elizondo goes, doesn't matter what I think, it's what your government is telling you. And your government is telling you that the phenomenon is real. And so the phenomenon is real, and they're rolling it out, and this is the coming great deception, and you'll see why in just a little bit. Alien life looks more and more likely. Catholics are ready. Religious traditions have always believed that we share the universe with angels, demons, and other non-humans. Well, some do, some don't. The Catholics may believe that, and if you go back here, Brother Guy Consul Magno, head of the Vatican Observatory, the Pope's astronomer, and of course he's at the Lucifer telescope. See Tom Horn on that. Great bit of reporting from Tom Horn and the crew over at Skywatch. But many of us are looking at this and going, we do share the universe with angels, I get that, and fallen angels, I understand that, but is there really life on other planets? And frankly, folks, no one knows. No one knows. Moving right along, U.S. intel report on UFOs, no evidence of aliens, but, so the idea that, well, it's typical doublespeak, we really have no evidence of aliens, but we can't rule that out either. So let's go back here. You tell me what we're looking at. You tell me what we're looking at. There's your evidence. And that's not been photoshopped in any way. And the late Richard Shaw was the one who got that and discovered it. Moving right along. So right here is a craft. What you're looking at is the day of the fire, November 9th, 2018. The day we lost our home and everything in it. All right? Here you can see the smoke in the mountains right in here. And we actually interviewed the woman who took this photograph. We're going to show her interview in part 2 of Disclosure. Well, when she snapped the photograph, she didn't notice this object right here. It wasn't until about a month later when she was going through her photographs, and by the way, she lost her home also. So it was absolute pandemonium for everyone, and for those of you who contributed to our moving and helped us out, Peggy and I give you a heartwarming, a heartfelt thanks, because we had PTSD. We lost absolutely everything, and all of our equity as well. But I digress. So she's looking at these pictures and she goes, oh my gosh, what does this look like? And she knows about my work, so she sent this to me, and there it is, plain as day. A UFO that is almost directly over my house the day of the fire. Almost directly over my house the day of the fire. We also have a witness who lives in our canyon. His house made it through because he was there and he fought the fire, okay? He's driving down our canyon, and his girlfriend, his wife, is with him, and he goes, oh my gosh, look at this. The entire canyon lights up blue. And then, so he's over here on the ridge going down the canyon. Canyon goes like this. On the other side is the other side of the canyon wall. So there's the canyon, okay? There's the road. Canyon goes down. Over here is the other side of the canyon. Coming down is this huge UFO floating down our canyon, lighting up the entire place blue. They stopped the car and looked at it, and it disappeared into the ocean. Aliens like our nukes. Former Intel official admits, claiming that UFOs interfered with U.S. atomic capabilities. The abduction of Robert Salas, from Watchers 8. We knew this years ago when we interviewed Robert Salas. If you've never seen Watchers 8, and we're going to show some of this interview in part 2, because we were so far ahead of the curve, and I'm patting myself on the back, I guess, but you know what? We're in the trenches doing this stuff, and people didn't understand what we were doing. Now they do. There it is. Aliens like our nukes. So listen to this. Robert Salas was on a ballistic missile base as its commander in 1967 when a red UFO landed near the front gate and disabled all 10 missiles. Stop right there. Stop right there. That's where that headline is from. Because Robert Salas talked about this on film, and later on, he was abducted. So he's the witness that went on the record talking about this UFO, which completely disabled, shut them all off. 10 intercontinental ballistic missiles armed with nukes. Think about that, folks. So then, years later, he's laying in bed. His wife is next to him. He wakes up. His wife is sound asleep. He sits up in his bed. There's this blue mist coming through the underneath the door and light on the outside. 2 robed figures appear. We've heard this from Whitley Strieber and other people who have had encounters. Sometimes it's grays. Sometimes it's robed figures. Sometimes it's mantis-like creatures. Sometimes it's like dwarf-type creatures. It's all over the map. Then next thing he knows, he's levitated off his bed. You're not in Kansas anymore. His wife is utterly switched off. He's worried about his grandkids. He then finds himself staring at the window, which he knows he has locked the night before. He knows he's done that. He's thinking, are they going to open the window? They don't open the window. He goes through the window. Folks, they can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. That's what they do. He finds himself on a steel table with a gray who is holding in his little webbed hands there, very large needle, which promptly is inserted in his manhood. Why would they do this over and over and over again? What's the point of conducting barbaric medical experiments like this on human beings? From the men, they take sperm. From the women, they take ovum. You're way down the rabbit hole here, folks. Way down the rabbit hole. You're not going to hear this on 60 Minutes or Fox News, not yet, because there's a nefarious agenda with these entities. Make no mistake about it. In my opinion, absolutely malevolent to the nines. You don't take people like this, abduct them, and then stick needles in their manhood, or take ovum from women, or take sperm from men. You don't do this. Why are they doing this? Jesus warns us, it'll be like the days of Noah when he returns. What happens in the days of Noah? Fallen angels came, took wives, human wives, went into them. That's coitus. Sexual relationships with the human women. They created a hybrid being known as the Nephilim, which results in the flood. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. Our book, Countermove, is a must-read. Might be the most important book I've ever written because it tells us how the Nephilim appeared after the flood. Folks, this stuff is real. We are now in the days of Noah. It's like the days of Noah. You're hearing all this because we've done the legwork. We sat with Robert Salas, and he was extremely emotional when I interviewed him. I've interviewed hundreds of people. When I interviewed him and he started telling his story, he broke down. On film, he broke down. Watchers 8. This came from a good friend of mine, a pastor here in Oklahoma. And this is a new series. Earth is visited by an alien species that threatens humanity's existence. Events unfold in real time through the eyes of 5 ordinary people across the globe as they struggle to make sense of the chaos unraveling around them. This is called conditioning. That's what this is. They're signaling what's about to happen. Will the church be here? In my opinion, we will not be here. There's a saying I coined several years ago. I know people disagree with it. That's fine. We go up, they show up. We go up, they come down. I'm speaking of the rapture of the church. And I know when I say that, some people are just irate. Oh, we're going to be here for the tribulation. Fine. If you want to believe that, I'm not going to argue it with you. That's your prerogative. I don't believe that, not for a New York minute. I believe we go up. Something is restraining them from just manifesting. We know that he who holds, he who restrains, will restrain until he is taken out of the way. That's the Spirit of a living God. And the Spirit of a living God is within you and within me, if you're born again and Spirit-filled. So with that in mind, we go up. Guess what? There's no restraining anymore. And that's when all hell breaks loose on this planet, literally. I've shown this clip before. J.Z. Knight, she's a channeler. She's channeling this entity known as Ramtha. People come from all over the world to study with her. They pay thousands of dollars to sit under her feet and learn all this nonsense. This was done years ago. Listen to what she says.
In the concept of free will, that in a time that whole earth, whole planet is facing extermination, there is a coming of these civilizations, of these greater beings, to begin to plant and pick out the people they're going to keep, they're going to help get out of here.
Listen here.
They implant them.
They implant them.
They implant them. They know them. They follow them. And there is a huge, huge effort to save a lot of beings in an effort called divine intervention. And divine intervention is to glean from any planet or to divine to, if both countries are praying to God under a different name, which one wins and which one loses? Which one truly gets the victory?
Listen to what she says here.
Where does the right to live on, whose hands does that set in? The most righteous. And who are the most righteous?
Here it is.
Those who respect the free will of other beings.
So I want to stop right there because what she is saying, the free will of other beings. When Jesus is in the garden, what does he say? Not my will, but your will. Basically, in my opinion, this is right out of the Satanic Bible. Do what thou will. That's their motto. That's their code. And so what is she saying here? She's channeled information. I will pray at the end of this because we are listening to a malevolent spirit, a fallen spirit that's possessing her. So listen to what she says.
And those that do it the greatest, whose leaders are strong and immovable and fearless, and fight for their people and their liberty. They are the side we're on. Those whose movement is to enslave personal liberty, to enslave free will, they're the ones we take down. So, all around, there is a quickening that's going on right now. It's right up above here. It's right up above here. Always seen by the military, by the way.
Always seen by the military, by the way. She's talking about it's an open gateway there. Why? Because look who's there. Look, she was led. She's been doing this for years. People come from all over the world to study under her. So I want to pray against that. Father, in the name of Jesus, we pray against this spirit, this lying spirit through this modern day witch. And I say that with all due respect, but she is a modern day witch. And she's channeling this information, and we are forbidden to even to partake in it. We partake of it only to learn that the deception is being unraveled right in front of us. It's being revealed. So we cancel any assignment. None of us will carry this home in our thoughts. We won't bring it across our threshold. We cancel it. We rebuke it in the name of Jesus and cancel any assignment that may be assigned to us from watching this nonsense, because that, in fact, what it is. We lift this woman up to you, J.Z. Knight, and we pray for her salvation. We pray for her deliverance in Jesus' name. We pray, Father, that she would know the gospel and the truth would set her free. So this is Leftovers. Check this out. Another show coming up. It has been called The Departure. It's unbelievable. Do not be troubled by word or deed or letter from us that the day of the Lord has come and are gathering to him, because that day will not happen until, drumroll please, the departure. And then the man of sin will be revealed. Well, that word, departure, is in the Greek apostasia. Apostasy. So it can be translated departure. It can be translated rebellion. It can be translated apostasy. Which is it? Depending on who you talk to. Could it have all three meanings going on at the same time? Could. Some prophecies are like that. So if it's departure, it's rapture, right? If it's departure, it's rapture. If it's apostasia, it's apostasy, rebellion. Guess what? It could be both. Because out of the 2 billion people that are on the planet, how many people are born again and spirit-filled? That is a prerequisite for being a child of the King. If you say, well, what's this born again stuff? Then you're not born again. That's how that works. When the Spirit of a living God comes into a man or woman, it begins to change them. What does Jesus tell Nicodemus? Nicodemus, unless you're born again, you can't see the kingdom of heaven. Why would he say something like that? So, 2 Thessalonians, dual meaning. We go up, they show up. The rest of the so-called church, which is here, is left here. How do I know that? Look at the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 have oil in their lamps. Oil is a type of the Spirit of a living God. 5 don't. They're both ready to meet the bridegroom, but 5 have oil and 5 don't. The 5 with the oil go in with the bridegroom. The 5 that don't are left outside. Think about that. Think about that. If you're not born again and Spirit-filled, now is the time to give your life to the Messiah, to recognize he who was sent, to call upon the name of Jesus and you will be saved, to confess with your mouth who he was and accept him into your heart. That's all you need to do. That he died for your sin and my sin, and by believing on him and confessing him with your mouth, you will be saved. So this leftover thing, this film coming out, has been called The Departure, a stunning global event in which more than 140 million people simply vanished. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not making it up. So once again, here we go. So this is the preliminary assessment, unidentified aerial phenomena, the 25th of June, 2021, total nothing burger, 9 pages. 9 pages. Meanwhile, the report which I downloaded, didn't read it obviously, almost 1,000 pages on cow farts. Cow flatulence, as they say. Yes, 1,000 pages studying the flatulence of cows and how they impact or may not impact global warming. But UFOs, which changes everything on this planet, 9 pages. That's all they can come up with. Nonsense. Shame on them. So Tucker Carlson once again sits down with Luis Elizondo, These are stills from that report, which happened basically the day after, or a couple of days after. Government says it has no explanation for 143 incidents that were analyzed. Elizondo says that one of them they figure was a deflated balloon, but the 143 others they couldn't make out what they were. UFO report does not rule out aliens. There it is again. Unidentified objects are using unknown technology. Nephilim architecture, fallen angel technology. That's why our series on the Trail of the Nephilim, we talk about this. When you go down Masak Sewaman and you see the stones, 40, 50, 80, 100 tons, moved from a quarry 40 miles away and put together seamlessly. How is that done? And you're told this ridiculous bald-faced lie, the Inca were master stone builders. Show me. They can't. And they won't, because the technology that built Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo is not on this earth anymore. Unidentified objects using unknown technology. Hello. Unidentified objects moving at impossible speeds. 200 knots underwater, you can't do that. Going 50 miles in a blink of an eye, we show that in our film Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception of Luciferian Endgame. Watch it. When you see Dennis, the pilot, who watches this thing vanish 50 miles in 3 seconds, I mean, that's unheard of. They bend space and time. Think about that. The UFO threat, what aren't they telling us? And of course, once again, Luis Elizondo is there talking about the fact, look, folks, here's the deal. The government knows exactly who it is they're dealing with. It's the old Texas two-step. It's obfuscate, obfuscate, deny, 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 deny. That's all this is. But the fact that they were bold enough to come out with a goofy 9-page report. Shame on them. Shame on them. As that's somehow going to placate. It's the biggest nothing burger I've ever eaten. Zero meat, lots of bun, some lettuce, a few pieces of onions, and 2 pickles, of course. Moving on. UFO report says flying objects are likely not from a foreign adversary. So it rules out the Chicons, rules out the Russians. Government report says UFOs may pose a challenge to U.S. national security. Oh, you think? Look, folks, here's the deal. These craft move with impunity over the cities and military bases of the world. As we talked about just a few minutes ago, when Robert Salas was ahead of that base, 10 intercontinental ballistic missiles switched off, taken offline just like that. Bam! How is that done? They manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. They move with impunity over the cities and military bases of every country on this planet. Government releases unclassified UFO report. It was a big nothing burger. The aliens are coming. Here's what the movies tell us we should expect from the Pentagon's UFO report. So once again, it's all UFO pretty much every day in some form of media. The cat's out of the bag. People are talking about it. People are writing about it. What was once relegated to coast, late night, conspiracy theorists, all that tinfoil hat wearing people, now it's mainstream. Yours truly, over 30 years. Steve Quayle, same thing. Decades, both of us together. Was probably well over 100 years. Because I started in my teens really examining this. I remember reading Eric von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, and just being blown completely away by that book. And believing that we were visited by ancient astronauts. Of course, I no longer hold to that paradigm. I believe this is the coming great deception. I believe what we are looking at are not aliens from Zeta Reticuli. They are, in fact, fallen angels, and they will deceive the entire planet. Hunt for Pentagon's infamous black triangle UFO photo after fighter pilots snap mystery craft rising out of the ocean. You can see right here the trail of water coming out following the craft. Look, folks, we're not making this up. You need to deal with it. And that's why the film is for free. I keep circling back to that because it will arm you with the information that you need. I've stopped working on the Trail of the Nephilim. We are now working on part 2 of UFO Disclosure. Why? This is the game changer. This changes everything when they show up. This is what Barack Obama says. Proof of aliens will lead to new religions and massive military spending. Out of all the things Barack Hussein Obama can say, why does he lead with this? Barack, Mr. President, with all due respect, sir, proof of aliens will lead to new religions? In our Bibles, we read about the one world religious system that will come under the rule of the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist, the one who appears instead of Christ. A global government, a global one world religion. It's coming. It's coming. And the fact that Obama says this, new religions, if that doesn't send a chill up your spine, and it also makes me wonder, how does he know that? And why does he lead with that? How does Obama know? I could go down a rabbit hole here and speculate. I won't. I will say this, keep your eye on him, for sure. Moving right along, these are some pictures that were sent to me. I believe they come from a film, and this guy just took stills off of it. That is the tic-tac shaped UFO right there that Commander David Fravor saw. Another shot just before it's hovering over the water here and hovering over the water there, and then here it dives into the water. Is that real? I think it is. This is all stills from UFO Disclosure, the film. Here I am with Al Matthews, and this is a still shot from the film. Once again, you can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, and Al was abducted numerous times. He had many encounters with these entities, and he became the centerpiece of the film. He also gave his life to Christ. This is, of course, Paul McGuire, and McGuire states in 2016 that we are going to see, in his opinion, we were going to see disclosure at some point in the near future. Well, I filmed him in 2016. In December of 2017, Commander David Fravor was on Tucker Carlson and revealed that that object that he saw was not of this earth, not from this earth. This was from an account from Al Witherspoon. He's driving on a road, and this is something that I later deemed UFO brain fog. His brother's in the back seat sleeping. His brother's girlfriend, is riding in the passenger seat. Al's driving. In the far distance, they see something that looks like the sun, but it's obviously not the sun because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. This thing all of a sudden comes to them. It's an orange globe. It paces the car for about 15, 20 seconds, according to Al's testimony. Then it leaves. And then he says this, when it left, we weren't in awe of it in any way. We didn't discuss it. We just concentrated back on driving. That is utterly irrational. I have come to call that type of thinking UFO brain fog. Here's another example of it. This woman with, this is when they were in high school, there were these women that were in a foster mother's home. So in order to go to the dance, they needed to be chaperoned and they needed to have a ride. So they got a ride. So there are these girls in this station wagon. They're coming back from the dance, and there's only 6 of them at this point. Originally, there were 12 girls, all packed like sardines in a station wagon. And the girls go, wow, what's that? And the woman who are driving and her sister realizes that this is right over the treetops, and whatever they're looking at is not trucks four-wheeling on some pathway in a field or a forest. They stop the car, they get out of the car, and they look at this thing, and they realize that it's a UFO. At this point, they become scared, and she says this on film. She says, so I told my sister, quick, go, go, go. And we were speeding, but we weren't moving. We were speeding, but we weren't moving. That is classic UFO brain fog. It's utterly irrational. And here's the chilling part. When they get back to the foster mother's home, the mother comes out and she's irate because they are hours late. But according to the witness, that couldn't have happened because we were only there for a couple of minutes looking at the object. Folks, they had missing time. They had missing time. And just like Al Witherspoon, they're trying to get their heads around what happened. What did I just see? When the orb left, we concentrated on driving. We were speeding, but we weren't moving. How can you be speeding and not moving at the same time? It's UFO brain fog. These entities, which have a nefarious agenda, in my opinion, manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. Bill's implant extraction. For those of you who have been following me for any length of time, we've covered this before. I'm going to show it to you again. This man, Bill, not his real name, was abducted when he was 5 years old. How many of you out there watching this right now think it's a good thing to abduct a 5-year-old against his parent wishes and then implant him with a foreign object? Please raise your hand. Look around the room, folks. I guarantee no one in this room has raised their hands. And guess what? When I'm speaking to people at UFO meetup groups or conventions with mostly New Age people, not a hand goes up. Everyone realizes that it's not okay to abduct a 5-year-old and implant them. So Bill comes to us. We did x-rays. We did CAT scans. We did ultrasound. We found the implant. It was there. When I started talking about this in 1999, people laughed at me. My brothers and sisters laughed at me. Oh, it's all demonic delusion, they assured me. No, it's not. Just like what we see here. Let me go back. Just like we see here, that's not demonic delusion. That's real. So with Bill's UFO encounter, he was taken, he was implanted. There is the implant on his knee. Why am I showing you this? Many of you who followed me for years, and it's in our Watches series, and I'll be revisiting that in part 2 of the UFO film. Why? People need to see this. There's a dark agenda. You want to talk about the mark of the beast? In my opinion, this is the precursor to it. There's the implant, right there. It's right underneath the surface of his skin, and guess what? There was no entrance wound. No entrance room where the implant was. So finally, we couldn't find the implant. And then after almost an hour and 20 minutes, I pray and I say, Father, just like, remember I showed you earlier when we're on Geller Hill and I pray against the entity which is coming through that little ovulus device? Same thing. I get a tap by the Spirit of a living God on my shoulder. LA, you need to take authority over this and do it now. And I did. I took authority over it. And I said, Father, if there are forces which are cloaking this device, I pray that you would break that power and do it soon. Within a minute, 2 minutes at the most, there's the object, there's the implant showing up. Then we could go in, Dr. Matriciana and Dr. Roger Lear. We made the incision. Dr. Matriciana, the surgeon, made the incision. Dr. Roger Lear's hands are right here. He's assisting, but this is Dr. Matriciana, the surgeon. There's the incision. We get our first look at the implant, which is right here. And now we begin to remove the implant. There it is, right there, folks. There it is. He's holding it with the forceps, with the tweezers, and he's cutting the tissue around it. Unbelievable. That's Dr. Roger Lear. And that's what the implant looks like. It's about the size of a grain of rice. In my opinion, this is a prototype of the mark of the beast. It's not the mark yet. It was put in this guy, Bill, when he was 5 years old. That's decades ago. The one that Dr. Roger Lear took out prior to this was so hard, he had to take it to a laboratory and cut it with a laser. This implant that you see here, we were able to cut it with a razor knife. And we examined it at Seal Lab with a scanning electron microscope. We're going to show this again. It's from our Watchers series, but we're going to take that clip and show it in part 2. Why? Because part 2 will be a deep dive to show the world how nefarious this entire program is. That these entities take a 5-year-old boy, implant him with this, and then decades later, we were able to remove it. They also knew exactly what we were up to in that operating theater, which is why they cloaked it. They messed with all the ultrasound machine and all the other machines we had to try to find this thing. Couldn't find it. One prayer changed all that. Why? Because greater is he that is in me and you, for those of us who are born again and Spirit-filled. Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. That's a shot of me and Dr. Roger Lear. That's the last time I ever saw it. That's not true. 2 days later, we were in Seal Lab examining it, and I took Roger out, and I said, Roger, I hope you understand what happened in that operating room. And Roger's eyes got really big and he said, L.A., I now believe that there's a supernatural dynamic to the alien abduction phenomena. So this woman gave me her testimony of this cosmic download that she got in 2004. She told it to me in 2016. Now in 2021, this is what she said. The powers that be, E.T., are going to create a plague on this earth, which will result in a mandatory vaccine. When you watch this film, you'll hear her say this in her own words, and it blew my mind. Could it be? I can say that here at this conference. I don't dare say it on our YouTube channel. We'll get the platform. Could it be that the Chi-Coms and everybody else involved with this thing, could it be that they had help from a Luciferian agenda? Because never forget, in my opinion, look at what it's done to the planet. It's a precursor of the beast system. It's not the beast system yet, but it certainly is a precursor to it. The enemy comes to rob, kill, and destroy. So what will E.T. tell us? Proof of aliens will lead to new religions. E.T. will tell us this. They created all life on this planet. They jump-started the world's civilizations. They created the world's early religions. Now at this critical juncture, they are back to usher mankind into a new golden age. And by the way, those implants that we took out, they've been perfected. That will go in your forehead or in the back of your hand. That will extend your lifespan 300 to 500 years, disease-free. It will change your DNA. And the Bible warns us specifically, anyone who takes the implant will wind up in the lake of fire. Why? Because you cease to become human. In those days, the book of Revelation tells us, men and women will seek death and not find it. Is that allegory? No, it's not. I'm a biblical literalist, as many of you know. It will happen. For some of you, this whole presentation has been a review. And I understand that. For others, it's something new. We've just touched the surface of it. I can't admonish you enough to please watch Disclosure, the film, The Coming Great Deception and the Luciferian Endgame. Keep your eye out for part 2. I wish I could be there to see your faces, to give you hugs, to shake your hand, but it just didn't work out that way. If we don't get locked down again in the fall, hopefully next year we'll be able to spend time together. In the meantime, folks, stay prayed up. Share the film with as many people as you can. If you want to contribute to part 2, that would be great. We're not asking you to. It's going to be free. But some of you can contribute because you're well off. And we would ask that you would look at our ministry as a worthwhile ministry. We talked about this decades before it happened. And now it's being rolled out. What are we going to see before we're taken up? I don't know. But I do know this, that we're already seeing much more than I ever thought. There's the rider on the white horse. And I saw heaven standing open. And before me was a white horse, whose rider is faithful and true. With justice he judges and makes war. He has a name written on himself that no one but he himself knows. His eyes are like flaming fire, and on his head are many crowns. He is dressed in a robe dipped with blood, and he is called the Word of God. The armies of heaven rode with him on white horses, dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God. And on his robe and on his thigh it is written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That will happen. That's our future. And the armies of heaven, and I was there for 3 seconds, you've heard me talk about this. We ride with him, and we were going down. I was there only for 3 seconds. I was translated 41 years ago, in the body or out of the body, I can't tell you. I'm holding on to the horse's mane. There is no saddle, there is no bridle. And isn't it interesting here that there doesn't appear to be a bridle or a saddle on that picture? It's the closest thing I've ever been able to find to it. I was holding on to the horse's mane. The armies of heaven were shaped in a horseshoe like this. In the center of that horseshoe was the rider on the white horse, Jesus. I was on the right flank, not to the top, but the armies of heaven are stacked like this in this horseshoe shape, and we're riding down. And I'm holding onto the horse's mane and looking like this. There's the rider on the white horse. It's real. It's more real than you're hearing my words right now. That's how real this is. He is coming back, and I believe it soon. Let's rejoice in that fact, but also let's keep our hands on the plow, because the rapture is not an escape. That's why every day I do my show. Get bold. Start talking about this. Show people how all this was prophesied thousands of years ago by Jesus himself. Even men will faint from fear for his coming upon the earth. God sends them strong delusion because they did not believe the truth. He allows the lie to come forth. It's going to happen. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Hopefully next year I'll see you at some conference somewhere, and I just want to thank you all and just say God bless you. In Jesus' name, amen.